Facebook at the same time, eh?
Oh, welcome back to another live episode of the relationship series. My name is Gina Spatero, and this is my brother Sam Spatero, always talking about matters of the heart and mind. And it's been a few weeks since we've been on here, just busy summer lives, I guess. Yep. It has been 3 weeks. Wow,
Yep.
3 weeks, crazy. Yeah, so it's summer right now, and things get busy and activities start happening. But how's your week been? How's work been, Sam?
I have to say, it's funny. I was talking to Crystal about 15 minutes ago. I said, today is probably one of the days in the past year and 4 months where I think I've been the happiest.
Wow, why?
Well, did I not send you that article about Doug Ford and what he said today?
No, you didn't send it to me, but
Oh,
yeah.
how he's not going to discriminate against or do passports, whether people want to be vaccinated or not.
Right.
Oh,
What a
it
relief.
was just like, after you do a good meditation,
Yeah.
and you just feel like just zen right out.
Yeah.
It was like the first zen moment I think I've had in a long time, especially, living in Ontario. I mean, yeah, there's stuff going on all around the world, but we obviously care what happens, here because
Hmm.
it affects us, right? But it was just it was definitely some a breath of fresh air, to see that headline. But work is good. Really busy, lots of little unique
That's good.
opportunities,
That's very good.
and just making the most of the summer. We think we might buy a cabana from Costco. We were going to build one actually,
Hmm.
but there was something like 65 or $66,000 to build it.
Wow.
Oh, it was ridiculous. Well, because of lumber prices being so expensive too, right?
Right. That's right.
But we ended up finding one on Costco that we like. It's like 12 feet by 20 feet. We were going to build one 20 by 18,
Hmm.
but it was like $3,500, and we could still do things to it that we want to do. It'll be less a washroom,
Yeah.
but we'll still be able to have like the fireplace and build like like a bar area with a
Yeah.
fridge. And so I think we're going to go that route, which is kind of cool because you've been in my backyard, right? It's really like piping hot in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of shade, right?
Right.
So it'll just be a nice other little lounge,
That's awesome.
area to go to. So yeah, that's kind of neat.
That'll cut the cost a little bit,
Yeah,
slightly.
times 20,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
So yeah, how about you? Oh, I wanted to speak about what happened here today too
What?
with in Barrie.
Oh, the tornado?
Craziness, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's only 5 minutes from your house,
yeah, I know that.
right?
Hmm. Not very far at all. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. I was actually saying today,
Can you imagine?
where would I go if that ever happened near my house? I'm
You
like,
don't have a basement,
no, no, because it's above, right? So
right?
it's a two-story, but still there's no foundation to it, right? Like there's no dug-in basement.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'd have to figure that out. But yeah, it kind of hits home a little bit, but I think everyone's okay, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, first tornado watch for the season. Usually happens like I would say every 5 to 10 years. There's an incident that happens locally.
Yeah, well, but you got to remember there's kind of like a channel, like
Hmm.
Tornado Alley, right from Angus to Barrie,
Yes.
right? And I'm sure, for me, every time something like this happens, or I think back to when we were almost in that one when we were
Yeah.
little kids, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, hopefully, everyone's okay.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Sending some shout outs to people who homes were destroyed because there were many, from what I seen. So wishing you guys many regards.
Yeah, 100%. But overall, I think so far everything's been good. Summer has been, you know, Canadian summers are hard to gauge. Like some years you get like super hot
Hmm.
summers, and some years you get like rainy mix of hot. Today or this year's one of those rainy mix of hot summers. So just trying to
Lots
like
of rain.
lots of rain. So trying to gauge
Jeez.
those days and planning things on
Mm-hmm.
like the nicer days, which is kind of hard
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. But overall, it's been okay. It's been okay. Would love to be somewhere, but that is what it is too.
Where would
So,
you be if you could go somewhere?
not here. Honestly, my next big vacation ideally would be back to Italy.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah.
is that the next vacation, or is that where you would like to be?
I think the next vacation for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, spend like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, possibly 5 weeks, maybe next summer. Maybe next summer we'll plan that a little bit better. But
Well, you have the great profession to be able to do that.
yeah, I know. I know it's
So,
it's very great. On that note, so tonight's topic is monitoring children's online access. And I think, after teaching online, it gave me a really big perspective on, the amount of time kids are actually online. And it actually opened my eyes that not only were they online learning, but they were actually online just maintaining like occupancy of like, passing time or, doing things while their parents are working or, their siblings are watching them or whatnot, right? So, how do you monitor online, specifically to make sure that they're doing things that are appropriate or age appropriate or maybe something that could be a little bit more engaging or you know should there be a time limit on those things? And it's hard because I feel for parents and people that are at home right now where you know summer camps are to a minimum, right? Access to all those kind of things are a little bit different this year. And what's one thing that parents want to do is keep their kids out of trouble, making less behaviors at home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're a parent. I see children all the time and I am with them quite often. And how do you go about creating that balance? Because first and foremost, kids don't know that balance themselves. If it was left up to them, they would spend probably every waking minute, you know, keeping themselves entertained, doing Lord knows what online, right? Because we are adults and we create the boundaries that are safe and appropriate for them so that they can learn, correct?
yeah.
Okay. So how and what do you think? Because I have some things here that we can talk about, but you're a parent. How do you monitor these things so that you know that there's that balance? Because we are in an age where, or an era where technology is here. It's not going away, right? So do we teach them appropriate behaviors? Do we teach them how to use it as a tool instead of something that is more for entertainment and like just passing time? What is the appropriate balance? What do you think before we go into some of the suggestions?
Well, I mean, that obviously is going to be determined, um, obviously by a lot of different family factors,
I agree.
right? Like I'll just say, for example, I'm not so great at that.
Hmm.
Um, because I'm not around my kids as much as my wife is. However, she is pretty amazing at that.
Hmm.
So, we have some pretty strict guidelines on, you know, their time with, you know, their phones or on our phones or on
Hmm.
the computers.
Hmm.
Um, but some key things that I noticed since the whole COVID thing and, doing online is, there's some telltale signs that they're obviously doing some things that they're not supposed to be
Right.
when it comes to school time, like stuff that isn't getting done.
Right.
Or because my wife's a teacher, she gets informed from, you know, my kids' teachers that they got on late or they didn't get back
Uh,
on or
yeah.
whatever, right? And it ends up coming out that, she'll pop in everyone and see that they're on their phones or
Yep.
doing something that maybe they shouldn't be doing. And, listen, I don't think any parent at this point, you know, really should be hard on themselves because we've all endured a lot over this short period of
100%.
time. And I think a lot of that is, you know, the least of people's worries and concerns, right?
Yeah.
However, it is going to play a key role in conditioning them because, you know, there's that golden rule that it takes 21 days to develop a habit. If you're in school for 9 to 10 months, you know, it's very crucial you set up some guidelines. So I think overall, you know, we've been pretty good with it, and
Yeah.
our kids are pretty, you know, pretty awesome about it as well. But you know, they know, you know, I'll just give a quick example. Um, there was a time there where we found out there was lots of stuff that wasn't being handed in by two of our kids, and they were saying things
Interesting.
were done and they weren't, and we banned them from social media
Good for you.
for a certain amount of time until they proved that these things were getting done. But we also came up with a dialogue to connect and work with them to say, look, we want you to be able to use these things if you like playing video games or chatting to your friends or roadblocks or whatever it is. However, these things need to get done. If you are struggling, communicate. If you need help and you're unsure, write it down. But you are responsible, right, for these things because no matter what's going on in our lives, your lives, as we're going to navigate this together,
Hmm.
we still have commitments that we need to follow
Right.
through on, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
I agree. And I think that, like you said, like we have to be kind to ourselves in all of this and understand. But I think the one thing that adults need to remember is that children look to you
Mm-hmm.
for guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Children look to you for direction. Inevitably. Like, it's like you said, right? Like your wife is very good at monitoring that stuff because it's her responsibility when she is with the children, just like it is yours when you are with them. And I think that it's so easy to say that, we we think they're responsible or we think that they're okay because they're quiet or they're doing something that's keeping them occupied. But that's not the case, right? Like there's a whole slew of other issues that come with being online all the time, like mental health. Like how many times do
Mm-hmm.
kids, bicker back and forth online
Yep.
without us even knowing? I heard it so many times where it's like, so and so wrote me this and they don't want to be my friend anymore. And it's like, this is all going on online, right? And then getting in the older year or ages, you don't know what else is being said. So monitoring is key. And I think a lot of the times, I think another good thing to do would be not to make sure that your child is isolated, right? So possibly if you're noticing that they're isolating themselves, maybe have them online in the same vicinity or close vicinity that you're in so that you can hear the conversations back and forth, that kind of thing. So it's not just like a secretive domain for them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that way you can still hear the conversations and their engagement, the language that they're using, the people that they're talking to, that kind of thing. Because I think that is so key. Because as a teacher, I noticed that the parents didn't know about a lot of these things, and I had to bring it to their attention. And for me, it's like, okay, I understand that everyone's, doing their own thing. But I think as a parent, you're signing up for all those responsibilities, right? So, whatever it is, I think that it's important that your children know that you do have an ear and an eye on every situation. It's not that you don't trust them, it's that it's your role and responsibility as their
Yeah.
parent,
No, I agree.
right? Because it's just too easy nowadays, right? Like, remember back in the day when, we just had email and all that stuff, and our parents were like, I'm not getting that email. I don't know how to use it, right? So just imagine what they know that we don't know, right? So the tables have now turned where it's like they could know something about this technology that we have no idea about. So the more that we can discover and engage and like understand, like kind of like secretively as an adult. And just being like, I love having you closer to me, and knowing what you're doing and that kind of thing, right? I think that kind of also proves that, that one, you want to be in their presence still, right? And that no matter what conversations come up, that you're able to talk about them or understand them with them. But I think isolation is probably one of the worst things that you could do with a child, is sending them to the room or having them, especially so young, right, engage in all these activities by themselves. So I don't know about you guys at home, but do you find that the kids are kind of like in their own areas or kind of like in each other's spaces? How do you guys navigate that?
So, I mean, obviously, when it came to schooling, it was a bit tricky because we have three kids.
Right.
So they couldn't, I mean, we tried where, you know, they were close, within a close vicinity of one another, but you're hearing everything that's going on the screen. It's a distraction. And if you're not someone that's completely focused, which the majority, of people aren't, it's going to hinder your
Right.
ability to stay focused and retain information, especially learning online. There's nobody there to guide you, right? Like, that,
Mhm.
you have any key presence in. But so what we did is, they were all set up in the rooms, and but Crystal will go in every once in a while and check in. But one key thing we did as well is we had someone come and help
Mhm.
once a day with the two eldest kids. Number one, the biggest thing was to alleviate the time my wife would have to spend at night
Right.
doing it with them. Um, I could also see the conflict it would create between that as well, because your mom's a teacher, and
Right.
right, it's a little bit different than if like for someone like myself who's not educated, you know um, with all the academia and how to what level they should be at, or what this is,
Mhm.
and right, so there's no context for me to formulate that, right? But yeah, no. So I think what we did, and there was some little things that we do, like if I would have times where, I was off, I'd surprise them with little treats, like a tea or a biscuit or something, or we would check in, and once a day we'd be like, at the end of the day, be like, okay, how did it go today? Is there anything that needs to get done? Or is there anything that you had questions about? And sometimes they would say, no, we're good, and that would be truthful.
Yeah.
But then there would be times where that wouldn't be the case,
Mhm.
right? And we would, step in and make sure that they felt supported. And I do agree with you. It's good to have that, um, that vicinity where you're engaged. But I think even if they're not in that vicinity, there's still an element of which you can't be engaged.
Right.
So
I agree.
which is very important regardless whether they're beside you. I think the whole key is what you're saying is, it's just be engaged. Don't assume because they're online and the teacher's there that everything's going to be good,
Mhm.
right? It's different than if you're in class,
Right.
right? These also are little children,
Mhm.
right? They do need a little bit extra support, guidance, understanding, and stuff, right? So
100%.
yeah.
And I think too that, I think just from my own experience, I think that a lot of the issues that I dealt with were issues that weren't when I was present, right? So they were independently um, active other than being at school online, right? So it's the issues that happened online, not being in school, that I found. Because, as a teacher, I found that it was okay to navigate a lot of that stuff on my own, like I would be in class. But what I'm thinking is, yes, of course, there needs to be that engagement when, especially young children, are doing schoolwork online. But I think what I'm talking about mostly is when it's personal use, right? So I think that is key. And I'm going to go through some of the tips that they have
Mm-hmm.
here. Okay. So I'm actually going to try and share my screen. Let's see if this works. Um, Window. Here we go. Share. Okay. Can you see it?
Yep.
Good. Okay. So it says get internet safety tips from professionals. So there are apps that parents can put on their phones, which kind of cue in like specific words that are being used, what to look for, and you get notifications, which I think is super important. Um, Especially now because there's like I was saying before, when our parents started using the internet, there were things that we knew that they didn't know, right? And now there's so many things that these kids know that are completely foreign to us. So there's things that these apps can decode for parents, like certain language that's being used, acronyms, that kind of thing. So they make that aware, or parents aware of that kind of stuff. Um, Once again, talk with your kids about appropriate behavior. Check their mobile devices and laptops regularly, just for conversations that they're having, making sure that they're appropriate, and definitely, seeing who their friends are, maybe, or if they're inviting new friends into their circle. Privacy settings that you can set, bedroom etiquette within your home. I think this is a really important one, reminding them that even though it's online, whatever you're showing or doing or saying is very similar to if you had a situation where if you're in front of someone, right? But the only difference is that it can also be easily recorded or snapped online. So I think that is very important, because those are the things that kids don't realize, especially getting older, that it can't be erased sometimes. And those comments or behaviors or situations could forever follow them in their future, and having that deep conversation with them. Nighttime devices. I mean, we all know that it's actually not healthy to have a device maybe like close to bedtime. It really interrupts sleep. So allowing for good sleep behavior, and helping them understand a lot of the things, right? The people that, I mean, there's a lot of apps now that invite foreign people into their chats, right? And there's a lot of predators out there, and it's having those conversations. Even though people say they are A, B, C, and D,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that they are. And having them very aware about who to trust and maybe what not to trust, because I think that's important. It's not to scare them and it's not to frighten them, it's just to make them aware, right? To protect them against some of the things that are out there. Um, Talk openly with your kids, like you and your wife do very well with. Teach them how to respond to certain things. You do a very good job about that. Teach them that you will always listen. Teach them not to keep secrets. And to show sometimes they will listen to someone else, and just making them aware of their circle that is safe for you and safe for them. And if they don't feel comfortable maybe talking to you, maybe these are the people they can go to talk to if they're not you know wanting to talk to their parents. Another huge one is creating a safe word. Okay, so if by chance they are in a room full of people and they're scared about something or want to share something with you, but they don't want to pull you away because they don't want to make a big deal, you can create a safe word with them. So, for example, if you knew that they were in danger or that they had a conversation that they wanted to talk to you about, for example, they could use the word pineapple, right? And you would just pull them aside and be like, okay, you know what? We'll be back in 5 minutes. We're just going to go for a walk. And then they knew that you had their back, right? So online is a completely
Oh,
different
I know.
game. It's too easy for kids to get lured into things that they're not ready. And I think a huge thing parents need to understand is that there's a limit and a fine line between befriending your child and teaching them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that there needs to be that clear line where it's like, okay, I want you to enjoy this, and I'm not just going to give you free reign so that you don't hate me. But there's a boundary, and we need to talk about those and set those accordingly. So those are just some tips that I thought were super important. But yeah, I mean, there's the flip side where it's like, oh, I want to trust my child and I want them to, yeah, maybe you trust them, but just like, letting your kids walk the streets at certain ages or do things at certain ages, it's not that you don't trust them, it's the other people that are very manipulative, right? We've talked about that many
Hmm.
times, right? That those narcissistic behaviors where they have no remorse for any of their behaviors, right? So it's making them aware of that. So, yeah, how do you feel about some of those suggestions?
I'm glad you're bringing this up because 2 weeks ago, actually, Chris and I were informed that someone we know actually had someone online. I don't know if they were playing Roblox or what they were playing, and it was a person pretending to be a kid
Yep.
who told them to open up some pictures and follow a link, and they did, and there were naked pictures
Um,
of a man, and they're telling this person to send pictures to them, and they got a hold of it and let us know like what happened, and we sat down with our kids and said, hey guys, like, this happened, whatever, but here's what we need to talk about,
yeah.
right? Like, number one, like, nobody should ever, under any circumstance, ever do that. Number two, if you're ever playing games and something just doesn't feel right or whatever, you come and you let us know. Number
Mhm.
three, I don't care if you're on the phone and you're doing something, whether you are supposed to or you're not supposed to, do not ever come and hesitate or worry about getting in trouble
Mm,
because there's a situation that we need to talk about. We
100%.
will look through that. We will never judge you. We always want you to know that can always feel safe, even if you're doing something you shouldn't be. But if something's not right, you always need to know that you can come to us,
Yeah.
right? And then the final golden rule is that we let them know that daddy and mommy will take care of it and that daddy will make sure that he guts them like a fish.
I think, you know what?
And that I bring that up because it enlightens it a little bit, right? So while
100%.
you're having these conversations with them, it's very important, while it is a serious matter, to bring a little bit of enlightenment in it. So
100%.
because you at least want to attach some positivity to them having fun and exploring and doing these things. But there's also a side that they need to be cautious and aware and know what the strategies and the steps are,
Mm,
when these things do happen.
yeah.
And they will happen.
100%. And I think too, I think kids need to understand that it's not a right to own these devices, right? Like it's earned and it's a privilege, right? And I think that there's a lot of entitlement where a lot of children think that this belongs to me. I own it. I can use it at my free will. I think that there needs to be that clear and decisive adult discussion where it's like, this is a privilege. And with this privilege, these are the boundaries that you need to follow, or else A, B, C, and D will happen. Because I mean, they're not perfect just like adults, right? So if they themselves are using language that's inappropriate, there's going to be consequences, right? If they're mocking or taunting other children online, there's going to be consequences, right? And I think one thing that you brought up, which was super important, when you were saying like click this link and stuff, I think, just understanding, okay, now I need to talk about stranger danger online. We talk about with kids like, okay, if someone approaches you at a park and they're saying, oh, I have some candy or I have some, want to see my puppy, da, 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 come with me. I think these are the things that we need to have conversations with kids about too, where it's like, oh, if someone online says click this link and you don't know who they are, or if they're telling you to follow this or go here and you have no idea what it is, show me first and we can deal with it together. So it's almost like being two steps ahead, right? So it's like being like, okay, I'm not aware of who this person is and they want to have a
Hmm.
conversation with me. I don't know who they are. They're saying that they are this person, but I'm unsure. So it's getting their spidey senses tingling and knowing when that goes off, when that intuition goes off, where to go, who to turn to, what to talk about, right? So I think it's now getting 2 steps ahead of these kids. And it's a lot of work because it's a whole new element of streets and avenues and paths that we're not aware of. And that's the issue. They are, they're more aware of it than anything. And I think also another really responsible thing that parents can do is make your children more responsible. Don't be afraid to remove some of that time online for things that they need to learn. And there's a chart here I'm going to show you. And I think parents get confused of when to do and what to do. So here's an age-appropriate chart of responsibilities that kids can learn at certain ages. And it's okay to shift their attention to things other than online access that will help them grow and be better. So, I mean, where is it here? So, yeah, it has a whole bunch of things that, kids can do from ages 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 7. And, you can create charts for them, have them check them off before they are even allowed access to their online, but not, and, if they're being not so responsible, maybe you could add 1 or 2 more responsibilities for them. If they're being super responsible, maybe you can take one away. So it's giving them that motivation too, right? And it's not about being mean or unfair. It's just about being responsible. So that's all the suggestions I have. I don't know if you have anything else to share.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, treating it like it's, a reward rather than a
Yes,
privilege,
a
right?
hundred
Yeah,
percent,
I think is very key.
100%,
I mean, I don't know a world today where a child's not going to need some sort of technology in their lives
100%.
for their own career, or I even think with everything that we've been experiencing, over this past year and 4 months. I mean, there's been a lot of positive things, other than some of the negative things that we're talking about here that
Yeah,
could have detrimental effects to our kids. But to being able to make connections and converse and see them and talk and play
100%.
games and and we get down to the the human needs. It's that connection that we all need, right? So
Yeah,
maybe it has saved some kids from having some anxiety or some mental health issues, because they were completely secluded and had at least some sort of connection with the outside world. So like anything in life, there's always going to be a positive and a negative, but it's just always trying to work out the best possible solution and path to make it as positive as possible, for sure.
I was just going to say that. I think there's so many wonderful things about it. And I know for me and my experience with the kids was they needed it. They needed that, platform where they could socialize, where they could interact, where they could engage. But the positive part about it is as a parent, it's not creating the negative around it. I think as a parent, it's understanding what we're in front of
Hmm.
can do for your child or to your child. That's the difference.
Yeah,
What can
don't let some social media mogul teach you. Go to these articles where there's
what can it
people
do?
who are really highly educated. They could give you a structural plan on how to teach your kids
Mhm.
responsibility to have these privileges,
Yeah,
and or some guidelines on what to do if things come up that
100%.
aren't really uh, you know the things that we want to see
Yeah.
happen.
And I think it's not being naive that it could
Hmm.
happen to anybody, right? We think that our kids are in this bubble, but really and truly, this online stuff could happen to anyone.
Anyone. Yeah.
Anyone. And just being 2 steps ahead and keeping them engaged, getting them, maybe there's a hobby or something that they can do, or, have them help you with things, or, you know, it's being responsible with their time management. And it's them recognizing what time management means. Right. So, on that note, I don't know if you have anything else to share, but I think that balance is key. I think education on this whole new platform is key, especially as adults. They already know how to navigate it. The kids already know. It's our responsibility to understand how they're navigating it, right, to keep them safe. So, anything else, Sam, before we head off?
No, I just want to say, for those who are watching, we want to thank you for your time. If you did find anything useful out of this video, give us a thumbs up and maybe leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you liked about the video, and maybe you might have something that you can add here that would be beneficial to
Mhm.
parents out there in the world. And if you haven't already subscribed, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button so we can welcome you into our community, where once again the relationship series is all about matters of the heart and mind.
Awesome. And we'll see you next time. Ciao for now.